If you're picturing me standing up in the middle of my own wedding and yelling, that's not what happened. The worst part is that it started like a normal, happy day. Like the kind of day you think you'll remember for the rest of your life? For all the right reasons. And then, in a bathroom that smelled like lemon soap and hairspray, someone looked me in the eye and said, "Please don't sign." I'm going to back up to the beginning of the day, because you need to understand how unreal this felt. I woke up before my alarm because my body was already in big day mode. My heart was doing that stupid fast little flutter like I'd had too much coffee, even though I hadn't had any yet. The room in the hotel was still dim, curtains drawn, and for a second I just lay there and listened to the silence like it was the last quiet moment I'd ever have. My phone was on the nightstand. I picked it up and saw her last text from the night before. "Tomorrow is ours. I can't wait to see you." It made my chest loosen. It made everything feel simple again. I'm not a dramatic person. I don't cry at commercials. I don't write poetry. I'm the guy who triple checks the reservation, confirms the parking, has an extra phone charger just in case. But that morning, for about 10 minutes, I let myself feel it. I let myself picture her in her dress. I let myself picture the signing, the photos, the way my mom would tear up, the way her friends would squeal. I took a shower that was too hot because my nerves needed somewhere to go. I shaved carefully even though my hands weren't steady. When I put on my suit, I had that weird moment where you look in the mirror and recognize yourself but also don't, because you look like a version of you that exists for other people. My best man, Nate, barged in while I was fixing my tie. "You good?" he asked, grinning. "You look like you're about to take a final exam." "I feel like I'm about to take a final exam," I said. He clapped my shoulder. "It's normal. You're just not used to being the center of attention." That was true. I wasn't. We had the whole groom routine, laughing, checking pockets, making sure I had the rings, making sure nobody forgot the vow cards. There was this constant hum of movement. People coming in and out, music playing softly from someone's phone, the venue coordinator texting, my mom calling to ask a question that didn't matter. It felt like being carried along on a moving walkway. Everything was happening because it had to happen. And I was happy, jittery but happy, the kind of happy that sits under your ribs and makes you feel like you're about to step into something bigger than you. The first off thing happened so small I almost didn't register it. When I checked my phone, I saw a missed call from her. That wasn't strange. People call on wedding days. But what was strange was that the call had lasted 2 seconds. Like it had been dialed and immediately hung up. Right after it, there was a text. "Sorry, pocket dial lol, see you soon?" It was harmless. It was nothing. I remember smiling at it because it felt like her. Clumsy, playful, affectionate. Still, something in me paused for half a second, like my brain had reached for a feeling and couldn't find it. Then I shrugged it off. Wedding day chaos. Phones. Pockets. Whatever. The second off thing was even smaller. When we arrived at the venue, the coordinator met us at the entrance and started listing the timeline. She was efficient, upbeat, the kind of person who could keep a room calm with her voice. "We'll do a quick run-through," she said, clipboard in hand. "Then we'll sign the paperwork at the front table, and then we'll start the ceremony." Nate joked about me signing my life away, and everyone laughed. The coordinator laughed too, but then she glanced at me and said, "Just make sure you have your ID. We had a couple call last month, and the groom forgot his." "My ID," I repeated, and my hand automatically patted my inner suit pocket. It was there. But the thing that stuck in my head wasn't the ID. It was the way she added, almost like she was repeating something she'd been told earlier. "And just, don't let anyone rush you. Take your time. The signing is the legal part." It was such a normal sentence, but the emphasis felt pointed, like she was trying to reassure me about something I hadn't even asked. I laughed it off. "No rush," I said. She smiled, and something in her eyes looked like relief, which was weird because why would a venue coordinator feel relief about my pace? Again, tiny. Harmless. The kind of thing you don't bring up because it sounds paranoid. We went through the motions. I stood in the little side room with my groomsmen. The officiant came by and asked if we were ready. Someone handed me a bottle of water. My mom hugged me too tight. My sister smoothed the collar of my suit like I was 12. And then I got a message from her. "I'm about to walk in. Don't cry too much." I smiled at my phone. My throat tightened the way it does when you're trying not to feel too much at once. Then another message popped up right after. From a number I didn't have saved. "No matter what happens, keep your voice calm." I stared at it. It wasn't signed, no name, no context. Just that one sentence, like advice. I looked around automatically, as if the sender might be standing nearby watching me read it. Nate noticed my face. "What?" "Nothing," I said too quickly, and my thumb hovered over the screen. I almost replied, "Who is this?" But then my phone buzzed again with another text, from her this time, and it drowned the weird one out. "Love you. See you in a minute." I told myself the unknown number was a wrong text. A guest. Someone trying to be helpful and failing. A random glitch of the universe. I slid the phone back into my pocket. The ceremony hadn't started yet, but people were already seated. I could hear the room filling, the low murmur of conversation, the occasional laugh, the clink of ice in glasses. It felt like standing backstage while your life was about to go on. I tried to breathe slowly, like Nate had told me, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Then my stomach dropped for no reason. Not nausea, not fear, just a sudden, physical awareness that I needed a minute. "Bathroom?" I muttered. Nate pointed down the hall. "Go, fix your tie, splash water, you've got this." I walked quickly, head down, not wanting to make a thing of it. The hallway smelled like flowers and perfume. Someone in a bridesmaid dress hurried past me and smiled. I smiled back automatically. The bathroom was empty when I stepped in. Bright lights, clean counters, the faint chemical smell of sanitizer under the lemon soap. I locked the stall door out of habit, then immediately realized I didn't need to. I wasn't using it. I just needed air. I went to the sink, turned on the faucet, and let cold water run over my hands. My reflection looked like a guy about to get married, tie slightly crooked, eyes a little too wide, smile that didn't quite reach. "Calm," I whispered to myself, and it sounded ridiculous. I splashed water on my face, then braced my hands on the counter and leaned forward. I tried to slow my heartbeat by force, like you can talk your body into behaving if you speak firmly enough. That's when the door opened. I heard it before I saw anyone. Slow hinges, careful movement, like someone trying not to be noticed. I straightened a little, expecting maybe one of my groomsmen, maybe a guest who didn't know the bathroom was occupied. Instead, the person who stepped in made my brain stumble. It was her witness. Not mine. Hers. Someone I'd always liked. Someone who had hugged me at the rehearsal dinner and told me they were happy for us. Someone who had looked stable, normal, safe. They closed the door behind them and didn't immediately walk toward the stalls. They just stood there for a beat, staring at the floor like they were trying to decide if they could still turn around. Then they looked up. Their face was pale. Their eyes were red like they hadn't slept. Their mouth open like they were going to speak, and nothing came out at first. I felt my shoulders tighten. "Hey," I said. "You okay?" They swallowed hard. Their hands were shaking slightly, and when they tried to hide it by stuffing them into their pockets, the movement looked desperate. They started, then stopped and pressed their lips together like they were holding back something that wanted to explode. My heart picked up again, but this time it wasn't nerves. It was instinct, the kind you get when someone walks into a room and the temperature changes. "What's going on?" I asked. They took a step closer, then another, like each step cost them something. They lowered their voice, not because anyone else was in there, but because it felt like the words themselves were dangerous. "Please," they said, and it didn't sound like a request, it sounded like a plea. "Please don't sign." For a second, I genuinely thought I'd misheard. "Don't sign," I repeated, slow. "What are you talking about?" They shook their head quickly, eyes shining, breath uneven. "I can't," they whispered. "I can't be part of this. I can't stand there and watch you." "Watch me what?" I asked, and my voice came out sharper than I meant it to. They flinched, then forced themselves to look me in the eye. Outside, through the wall, I could hear the muffled rise and fall of the crowd. Laughter. A chair scraping, someone calling my name faintly down the hall. Inside the bathroom, it was suddenly too quiet. Even the faucet sounded loud. The witness took another breath. Their throat bobbed. Their eyes flicked once toward the door, like they were imagining her on the other side. Then they whispered the sentence that made my stomach drop straight through the floor. "I have to tell you something before you sign anything," they said. "Because if you sign, it becomes permanent." My mouth went dry. "What are you saying?" I asked. They opened their mouth again, and this time the words finally started to come out, shaky and inevitable. "It's not," they began, and their voice broke. "It's not what you think. It's worse." And in that exact moment, with my hands still wet and my tie still crooked, and my wedding waiting down the hall, I realized something terrifying and simple. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't nerves. This wasn't a conversation I could put off until after the ceremony and talk through like adults. Whatever they were about to say was going to split my life in half. and I was about to hear it. I stared at them like my brain had slipped a gear. "Please don't sign." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't shouted. It was the kind of sentence someone says when they're out of time and out of options. For a second, all I could hear was the faucet running and the thin buzz of the bathroom light overhead. I had my hands braced on the edge of the sink, palms wet, suit jacket unbuttoned, tie loosened, like I was trying to pretend I was fine. The witness, her witness, stood between me and the door like they were afraid I'd walk out and accidentally step into a trap. Their eyes were red, not movie cry red, real red. Like they'd been holding it in for days and their body had finally decided it was done cooperating. I opened my mouth, but instead of a sentence, I just breathed out, "What?" They swallowed hard. I can't do this." And that's the moment my mind did the thing it always does when it's terrified. It tried to make everything make sense by rewinding. By grabbing onto the story I'd been living and insisting it still had to be the story. Because up until this bathroom, we were the couple people pointed at and said, "See, that's how it's supposed to look. I'm 31. I'm the boring kind of stable. I pay my bills early. I keep a spreadsheet for my savings. And I've never been the guy who thrives on chaos. I'm not proud of how predictable I am, but it's who I am. I'm the friend people call when their car won't start or they need help moving a couch." And when I met her 4 years ago, it felt like someone had cut a window into my life and finally let air in. She's 29. She has that effortless social ease where she walks into a room and people turn toward her like she's a warm light. She remembers small details about strangers. She makes waiters laugh. She sends the kind of thoughtful texts that make you feel seen. If there's a group photo, she's the one pulling people in so nobody gets cut out of the frame. And that mattered because I've always been more comfortable in the background. With her, I didn't feel like a background. I felt chosen. We moved in together after a year and a half. It wasn't impulsive. It wasn't some messy, we're basically living together anyway situation. We talked about it. We toured places. We budgeted. We split everything clean. She had a whole color-coded Google Doc for furniture ideas, and I laughed because it was so her, and I loved that she cared. The perfect couple reputation didn't come from nowhere. We were good together. We hosted dinners. We showed up for each other's families. We had inside jokes and stupid rituals. She'd tap my shoulder twice when she wanted to leave a party. I'd squeeze her hand once to say, "I'm with you." So when the timeline started to speed up, I didn't immediately see it as a red flag. I saw it as momentum. It happened after we went to a friend's wedding and she cried during the vows. Not loud crying, just tears on her cheeks, wiped away fast. In the car afterward, she said, "I want that. I want us." I remember feeling my chest expand like I'd been holding my breath without realizing it. A few months later, my lease renewal came up. Rent had jumped again, and I was already frustrated because I'd been saving for a down payment, and it felt like the city was punishing anyone who wasn't already locked into something. At the same time, her company had hinted about changes to health benefits, and she kept talking about wanting stability, wanting to stop feeling like life could shift under her feet with one email. That's when she started saying the word paperwork like it was a love language. Not just wedding paperwork, everything, accounts, beneficiaries, getting our ducks in a row. She'd send me links about buying versus renting. She'd forward me mortgage rate articles like they were breaking news. She'd ask questions that sounded practical and adult. What's the plan if one of us loses our job? What's the plan if we ever have kids? What's the plan if we want to move? When she framed it like that, it didn't feel like pressure, it felt like partnership. We went to a lender just to see. We got pre-approved just in case. We toured a townhouse just for fun. And then the townhouse turned into her dream townhouse, and her voice changed when she walked through it. Softer. Almost reverent. "I can picture us here," she said. "I can picture our life. I had money saved. Not trust fund money, just years of being boring and skipping trips and packing lunches. I had a decent chunk in a high-yield account earmarked for a down payment, and I was proud of it." She knew that. She'd seen my spreadsheets. She'd teased me about my retirement fantasies. So when she said, "If we do this, it needs to be now," I listened. Rates were moving, inventory was tight. The seller wanted speed. And there was this one detail that, in hindsight, makes my stomach turn. She kept framing marriage like the final, logical step that would make everything easier. Easier with the house title. Easier with beneficiaries. Easier with us being recognized as a unit instead of two individuals making parallel choices. I told myself she was right. People do it all the time. We put down deposits for the venue and photographer because she said dates were filling fast. We opened a joint account for wedding expenses because it felt responsible. I wired earnest money for the house because the deadline was ruthless, and the plan, our plan, was that we'd close shortly after the wedding, when everything would be cleaner, more official. The signature today wasn't just a romantic gesture, it was the keystone, the thing that made the rest of the structure hold. And because there was so much at stake, she got weirdly intense about privacy. "Let's not talk about the numbers with anyone," she said more than once. "People get weird about money." "Fair enough. Let's keep the details between us until everything's final," she said. "I don't want opinions." Also fair. But it wasn't only the numbers. It was timelines, too. She didn't want me talking about closing dates or who we were using for the mortgage. She didn't want me discussing the legal steps with my dad, even though my dad is the most low-drama human being alive. "He's going to make you overthink," she said. "This is our life, not a committee decision." I let it go. Because again, partnership. Because again, I didn't want to be the guy who needs his parents to approve his relationship. And the more people praised her, the easier it was to ignore the tiny pinpricks of unease. Her friends adored her, my mom adored her, my sister called her the fun one. At family gatherings, she'd offer to help in the kitchen without being asked. She'd bring thoughtful gifts. She'd ask my grandma questions about her childhood and actually listen to the answers. She was the kind of person you trust. The kind of person you assume has good intentions because she makes you feel good. Which is why the first time I had a question that didn't fit the script, I immediately felt guilty for having it. It was a stupid thing, a charge on our joint card. Not huge, not suspicious in the obvious way. Just odd. It was from a hotel bar in a part of town neither of us really went to, midweek. Early evening. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open, trying to sound casual. "Hey," I said, "did you go to the Midtown Hotel recently? There's a charge on the card." She didn't even hesitate. She barely looked up from her phone. "Oh yeah, I met Jenna there for a drink after work." "Why?" "Just didn't recognize it," I said, "that's all." And she put her phone down slowly like I'd said something else entirely. "Do you not trust me?" she asked. "That's not what Because it feels like you're monitoring me," she said, voice calm, almost gentle. "Like you're keeping tabs. That's controlling." The word landed heavy. Controlling. I felt my face get hot. I felt that defensive instinct rise in me, the one that hates being misunderstood. "I'm not monitoring you," I said. "I'm looking at our shared expenses. That's normal." "It's not normal to interrogate me about where I am," she replied, still calm, still reasonable sounding. "Not when we're supposed to be building a life together." Interrogate. Monitor, controlling, she stacked the words like bricks. I remember backing down, not because I thought I was wrong, but because the emotional math suddenly didn't make sense. Why was this such a big reaction? Why did I feel like the bad guy for noticing a line item? So I apologized. I said I didn't mean it like that. I said I was stressed. I said I'd drop it. And the weird part is, she softened immediately, like the whole thing had been a test, and I'd finally picked the correct answer. "That's all I needed," she said. Then she smiled and leaned in to kiss me, and it was over. Except it wasn't over. Not in my body. After that, every time I noticed something small that didn't add up, I hesitated. I weighed whether it was worth triggering that label again. I started editing myself before I even spoke. And because she was so charming in public, so adored by everyone, I started doing something I hate admitting. I started assuming, if there was tension, it must be me. It wasn't like I thought she was cheating. That's the thing. If you'd asked me last month, I would have laughed at the idea. I would have defended her. I would have told you we were solid. But I also would have told you, quietly, that the last few months had felt like I was on a moving walkway, being carried toward decisions at a speed I didn't fully control. And now, in this bathroom, with the witness standing there shaking, I felt that moving walkway stop. Outside the door, someone laughed, like a real belly laugh. I could hear the faint thump of music. A voice called my name, playful, impatient, probably one of my groomsmen wondering why I was hiding. My hands were still wet. My heart was doing something frantic and stupid in my chest. The witness looked at me like they were about to hand me a live wire. And suddenly I wasn't thinking about vows or photos or the way she looked in her dress. I was thinking about that one word she used so easily. Controlling. Like it was a collar she could snap around my neck whenever I got too close to the truth. The witness took a step closer, lowering their voice as if the door itself could hear. "Okay," they said, and their throat bobbed like they were forcing the words up. "I'm going to tell you what's been happening, and you're going to hate all of us." My stomach dropped, because my body already knew, and my brain was finally starting to catch up. The witness didn't look away when they said it. That was the worst part. "I'm going to tell you what's been happening," they repeated, voice low. "And you're going to hate all of us." I wanted to laugh, because it sounded impossible. Hate all of us? Like this was some kind of coordinated prank with a bad punchline. But their hands were shaking so hard they had to grip the edge of the counter to steady themselves. Their knuckles were white. Their breathing was coming in short, uneven pulls like they'd sprinted into this bathroom and locked the door behind them on purpose. "What are you talking about?" I asked, and I heard how thin my voice sounded. They swallowed, then started, stopped, then started again. Okay, I'm sorry. They pressed the heel of their hand into their eye like they could physically push the guilt back in. I should have said something earlier. I kept thinking it would end. I kept thinking she'd stop. "She?" I repeated, even though there was only one she in my world right now. They nodded once, fast. "Yes, her." And they winced like the next word had teeth. "And him." My stomach tightened, a cold, slow pressure right under my ribs. "Him who?" They looked at me, then down at the sink, then up again, like they couldn't decide where to put their eyes without breaking. "I don't want to say his name and have you. I don't want you to do something stupid." "I'm not going to do anything," I said automatically, even though my hands were curling into fists. They let out this shaky breath that sounded like relief and disbelief at the same time. "It's been going on for months," they said. "And it's not just cheating." There it was. The word landed, and my brain still tried to reject it, like my thoughts were a room that word wasn't allowed into. Cheating. Parallel relationship. Those were words other people dealt with. Messy people. Loud people. Not the couple everyone toasted. Not the woman who had cried in the car and told me she wanted our life. I felt my pulse in my throat. "Are you saying she's been sleeping with someone?" I asked. The witness flinched at the bluntness, then nodded again. "Yes, but—" They lifted a finger like they were trying to stop me from latching onto the simplest version. "But it's more than that, I swear. It's organized." I stared at them. Organized. They took a breath and forced themselves to keep going. "It started as—" "I thought it was one of those messy rebounds," they said, and then immediately shook their head. "No, that's not right. It started as her saying she needed to blow off steam. That you were stressed, that you were being weird about money, that you were pressuring her." My jaw clenched. "She said that?" They nodded, shame flashing across their face. "She's been saying it for a while, not to everyone, just in little pieces. Like she was laying groundwork, like she wanted people ready to believe it if something happened." The bathroom suddenly felt smaller, the light buzzed louder. Outside, the muffled thump of music hit the door like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. "What happened?" I asked, and my voice sounded steadier than I felt. "Tell me exactly." They pressed their lips together, then spoke in a rush, like if they slowed down, they'd lose the courage. "Okay, there's someone she's been seeing. He's in the group. Not your group, her side. You've met him." My eyes flicked through faces without my permission. Smiles, handshakes. People who'd hugged me today. People who'd clapped my shoulder and told me I looked happy. I didn't say anything, because if I guessed wrong, I didn't want to give it shape. The witness kept going, stumbling a little. "She started using a second line," they said, then immediately corrected themselves. "Not a full second phone at first, like an app, one of those that looks like a calculator. It's stupid. It's so stupid, but it works because nobody's looking for it." I just stared, trying to picture her thumbs on the screen while we watched TV together, while she lay in bed next to me, while she asked me about my day. "They'd message there," the witness said, "and then she'd delete, or it would auto-delete. And if you asked why she was on her phone so much, she'd say it was wedding stuff. Which, technically it was. She was doing both." I felt something hot and sharp move through my chest, like anger trying to break through the numbness. "And the alibis?" I asked. Because my mind was grabbing onto details like they could build a bridge back to reality. The witness nodded, as if they were grateful I was asking about the mechanics, not screaming. "She didn't even need alibis most of the time," they said quietly. "Because she built them into her schedule. She'd run errands, but it was always the same pattern. Quick, normal excuses. And she'd make sure someone else could confirm something small." I frowned. "Confirm what?" "Like, she'd stop by Jenna's for 10 minutes. Or she'd swing by her mom's. Or she'd show up at a group thing for half an hour and take a picture and then leave, they said, and their voice broke on the last word. So if you ever questioned where she'd been, someone could say, "Oh yeah, she was with me," but they didn't know the rest. My mouth went dry. Overlapping lies. Harmless fragments, everyone holding one puzzle piece and no one seeing the picture. "And you?" I asked. They looked like I'd slapped them, which told me the answer before they spoke. "I covered," they whispered. At first, I didn't think I was covering anything. It was helping her. It was girl code. It was she needs a safe place to vent. They laughed once, bitter and broken. Then it became, "Can you tell him I was with you if he asks?" And I said yes, because it sounded harmless. And then it became, "If he brings up the card charge, remind him he's stressed." And I did it because I thought I was protecting her from your anxiety. The word controlling hovered in the air between us, like a weapon that had already been swung. "She told you I was controlling," I said, "and it wasn't even a question." The witness nodded again, tears finally spilling over. "She said you were obsessed with checking things, that you always wanted to know where she was, that you'd freak out over nothing. She said you needed to be reminded that she wasn't your property." My throat tightened so hard it hurt. I could hear her voice in my head, calm and measured, placing those bricks in front of me. Monitor, interrogate, controlling. She hadn't just defended herself. She'd built a story about me. "Why?" I asked, and it came out rough. "Why would she do that if she—" "Because she needed it," the witness said, and then shook their head like they hated themselves for saying it. "She needed people to believe you were capable of overreacting. So if you ever suspected anything, it would look like you were proving her point." The bathroom swayed for a second. I gripped the counter so I wouldn't show it. "Okay," I said, forcing the word out. "Okay, but you said it's not just cheating. What else is it?" They hesitated. I watched them fight with themselves. Their eyes flicked toward the door, like they could already hear the fallout on the other side. "It's the timing," they said finally. "It's the signature, the paperwork, the house." My pulse spiked. "What about the house?" The witness's voice dropped even lower. "She's been talking about it like it's a move, like it's a chess move. She keeps saying, 'Once we're married, it's clean.'" "Clean," I repeated, and my skin prickled. They nodded, then hurried on as if speed could make it less real. "He's in debt," they said. "The guy she's seeing. I don't know all the details. I didn't ask, because I didn't want to know. But I heard enough. It's not like, 'Oops, I overspent.' It's serious. And she—" They wiped their face hard. "She said he needed help, and she was going to help him, and this was the easiest way." My mind snagged. "Help him how?" The witness squeezed their eyes shut. "Money, access, the wedding gifts, the joint account, and equity." My lungs forgot how to work. "That's insane," I said, but it sounded like I was trying to convince myself, not them. "I know," they said. "I know." That's why I kept telling myself I must be misunderstanding, that I was hearing it wrong. But then she started using the same phrases over and over, like she'd rehearsed them, like she was talking herself into it. Outside the door, someone knocked lightly. "You good in there?" a voice called, cheerful. My spine went rigid. The witness didn't answer. Neither did I. We stood there in the thin air of the bathroom, holding our breath like two people hiding from a wildfire. After a moment, the footsteps moved away. The witness exhaled shakily. "They planned for today," they said, and it hit me how final their tone was. Like, specifically today. She's been weirdly focused on the signing. Not the vows, not the ceremony, not you. The signing. I stared at them. "How do you know?" They reached into their pocket and pulled out their phone. Their hand shook so much the screen wobbled. "I have something," they said. I didn't mean to. They swallowed hard. I started taking screenshots because I felt like I was losing my mind. My heart hammered. "Screenshots of what?" They unlocked their phone with trembling fingers, scrolled too fast, then slowed down, then scrolled again, like they were afraid they'd accidentally passed the part that would ruin everything. Finally, they turned the screen toward me. At first, it was just a thread of messages with names blurred by my tears. Then my brain focused. Her name was there. And beneath it, a man's contact name I recognized instantly, like a slap. Someone I'd seen today, someone who'd smiled at me. The witness's thumb hovered, then tapped. The messages weren't romantic. That was the most disturbing part. There were no hearts, no "I miss you," no late-night poetry. It was logistics, dates, numbers, plan. One line jumped out so clearly I felt like I'd been punched. "Once he signs, it's done. After that, he can't undo it without burning himself." My vision tunneled. Another message, from her, colder than anything I'd ever heard in her voice. Don't panic. He'll try to talk. I'll handle him. Everyone thinks he's controlling anyway. The witness's voice came out, broken beside me. I'm sorry. I couldn't speak. I could only stare at the screen, at her words, at the calm cruelty of them. And then I saw the date in the message thread, like a stamp at the bottom of my life. Today. A time. A note that made my blood go ice. Signing at 2 o'clock. After that, we're safe. The witness pulled the phone back like it was burning them. That's what I mean, they whispered. This isn't an accident. This isn't a mistake she'll regret in the morning. This is a plan, and today is the lock. They looked at me, eyes wide and desperate. If you sign, they said, and the words came out like a warning someone gives right before the bridge collapses, you make it real. You make it legal. You make it permanent. My hands were still on the counter, but I couldn't feel them anymore. Outside, the music kept playing, the same beat, the same laugh track of a life I thought I was living. Inside, the proof sat on the witness's phone like a death certificate waiting for a signature. And all I could think was, she wasn't rushing this wedding because she loved me. She was rushing it because she needed me to sign before I figured out who she really was. The weird thing is, none of it hit me all at once. People love the clean version of this story, the version where I knew and ignored it, or I didn't know and got blindsided. But the truth was messier. It was a slow accumulation of tiny moments that didn't fit together, and every time I tried to hold one up to the light, she made me feel like I was the one being unreasonable. Even standing there in the bathroom, with the witness's phone in their hand and that word planned, hanging in the air, my mind kept trying to protect me by grabbing for context. Because I didn't wake up one morning and decide to suspect the woman I was about to marry. I just kept running into reality. And reality didn't match her version of things. It started with that hotel charge, the Midtown Hotel bar. Midweek, early evening, I'd asked about it like it was nothing. Like it was a normal question in a normal relationship, and she'd made it feel like a character flaw. Do you not trust me? She'd asked, voice soft, almost wounded. I'm not accusing you, I'd said. I just didn't recognize it. And she'd leaned back in her chair, calm as a therapist. It's controlling, you know? Keeping tabs like that. That word again. Controlling. I remember blinking at her because I wasn't keeping tabs. It was our joint card. It was a charge I didn't recognize. It was literally the most boring adult conversation possible. But she didn't argue the details. She didn't say, oh yeah, it was Jenna, here's what we talked about, and laugh it off. She went straight for my intent. She went straight for my identity. And I backed down because I didn't want to be the guy who's interrogating his girlfriend over a receipt. So I swallowed it. I apologized. I told myself I was stressed, and this was wedding nerves, and everyone gets weird around big life events. That's how it worked. That's how she made it work. She didn't deny the small things. She made you feel ashamed for noticing them. The second thing happened about 2 weeks later. She told me she was going to run by the office on a Saturday because she'd forgotten something and she needed it for Monday. It was one of those throwaway explanations you don't question because why would you? People forget things. Except she came home with her hair done. Not full blowout, but styled. Not messy. I've been in my car and then in a building hair. Soft waves. Like she'd had time. Like she'd looked in a mirror and decided to be pretty on purpose. Did you go somewhere? I asked, trying to sound casual. She didn't miss a beat. No. Why? I paused. Your hair. She smiled like I'd complimented her. Oh, I fixed it in the bathroom at work. The AC in there is insane and it makes my hair go weird. It was a good answer. Too good. Smooth. Immediate. And if that had been the end of it, it would have just been a weird little moment. But later that night, we were sitting on the couch, and she was scrolling through her phone. A notification popped up, and I only saw the first few words before she swiped it away. Can't wait to see you again. I didn't see who it was from. I didn't see the rest. And I didn't say anything because the rational part of my brain said notifications are random, friends are flirty, people text dumb stuff. It could be anything. Still, my stomach tightened. I remember thinking, I'm not going to become one of those guys who polices his girlfriend's phone. So I did what I always do. I looked for an innocent explanation first. The third thing was the one that started to make the pattern feel real. It wasn't a big scandal. It was a story. She told me she had dinner with her friend Marisa after work. She even complained about the restaurant being too loud. She named the place. She told me what Marisa was wearing. She mentioned their server messing up the order. It was so detailed, it felt like watching someone paint a picture. And then, 2 days later, my sister mentioned she'd run into Marisa at the grocery store that same night, around the same time as the dinner. She said Marisa had been in sweatpants and was buying cold medicine. It should have been nothing. People forget nights. People exaggerate. Maybe Marisa went to the store after dinner. Maybe my sister was wrong about the time. But it lodged in my head, because the story my girlfriend told me had been so polished, so complete, like it was meant to close a door in my mind. So I did something I still feel weird admitting, but it wasn't illegal or invasive. I simply asked Marisa the next time we saw her, casually, the way you do when you're trying to make small talk. "Oh, how was that place you went to with her?" I said. She said it was loud. Marisa blinked. "What place?" The air in my lungs stalled. "You know," I said, trying to laugh, trying to cover. "Dinner, the other night." Marisa looked at my girlfriend for half a second before looking back at me. "Oh, yeah, it was fine." It wasn't the answer. It was a placeholder. And then my girlfriend jumped in fast, too fast, like she'd been waiting for the moment. "It was so loud," she said, and she rolled her eyes. "Perfect performance. We couldn't even hear ourselves. Remember? That couple next to us?" Marisa nodded. "Right, yeah." I stared at them. Two women agreeing with each other in real time, building a scene that I felt in my bones had not happened. And what did I do? I smiled. I played along. Because what was the alternative? Calling my fiancée a liar in front of her friend? Turning a dinner conversation into a courtroom? I told myself I was overreacting. I told myself I was seeing ghosts. But after that, I started noticing how often her stories had a certain sheen. Like they'd been buffed, like rough edges had been sanded off. And then the fourth thing happened, and it felt like the world slipped for a second. It was the phrase. I had a stressful week at work. I was short with people. I was tired. I wasn't proud of it. She knew that. One night, I tried to talk. Not about cheating. Not about where were you. Just about the way things felt off lately. The speed. The secrecy. The way I felt like I was always catching up to decisions instead of making them with her. We were in the kitchen. She was rinsing dishes. The house was quiet. It was the kind of moment you're supposed to be able to have with the person you're marrying. "I feel like you've been guarded," I said. "And I don't know if it's me or what, but it's messing with my head." She didn't turn around. "I'm not guarded." "Okay," I said carefully. "Then help me understand. Because I feel like whenever I ask about anything, it turns into me being the bad guy." That got her attention. She turned and leaned against the counter like we were about to do a scripted scene. "You've been really stressed," she said. Calm, reasonable. "And when you're stressed, you get controlling." There it was, delivered like a diagnosis. My throat tightened. "I'm not trying to control you." "You want to know where I am," she said. "You want to know who I'm with. You want explanations for everything." "I want transparency," I said, and my voice cracked on it. "We're about to get married." She exhaled like I was exhausting her. "See? This intensity, this pressure, it's not healthy." "No," I said, and I hated how desperate I sounded. "What's not healthy is me feeling like I can't ask a question without being accused of something." She raised her eyebrows, just slightly. "So, now I'm accusing you?" I felt the trap closing. If I pushed, I was proving her narrative. If I backed off, I was swallowing my instincts again. "I'm trying to talk," I said. "And I'm telling you," she replied, voice still smooth, "that you need to stop trying to manage me. You don't get to manage me. Manage me, another brick." I remember standing there, hands open, like I was trying to show her I wasn't a threat. I remember apologizing again, because I didn't want to fight. Because we had vendors to pay and invites to send and a house closing timeline breathing down our necks. Afterward, I sat on the couch and stared at the dark TV screen, watching my own reflection like I was trying to figure out when I'd become the kind of man who apologizes for noticing things. And then the fifth thing, the one that made me feel physically sick, was how other people started echoing her. Not everyone, not all the time. Just enough to feel like a coincidence until it wasn't. I'd mention, casually, that she'd been distracted lately, and her friend would say, "She's just overwhelmed. You know how she gets. Don't take it personally." I'd mention a timeline question, and someone else would say, "Man, weddings make everyone crazy. Just relax. You've been intense. Intense. Overwhelmed. Stressed." And once, at a group dinner, I joked about being the spreadsheet guy, and one of her friends laughed and said, "Yeah, but don't go full control freak on her." Control freak. It hit me so hard I almost dropped my fork. I smiled, because that's what you do when you're surrounded by people and you don't want to look paranoid. But inside, something cold unfolded. Because those weren't random words, they were her words. They were the way she framed me. She didn't just manage me inside our relationship. She managed the way the room would interpret me if I ever spoke up. And I still didn't spy. I didn't go through her phone. I didn't install anything. I didn't follow her car. I didn't do any of the stuff people online love to recommend like it's normal. All I did was pay attention to what was in front of me. Receipts that didn't make sense. Stories that were too smooth. Friends repeating the same phrases like they'd rehearsed them without realizing it. And me, constantly being positioned as the one who was too stressed, too intense, too controlling to be trusted. So standing in the bathroom now, with the witness shaking in front of me, it all snapped into place in the worst possible way. They weren't just confessing to cheating. They were confessing to a system. The witness's phone was in their hand. They looked at it like it was a weapon they didn't want to use, and then they looked at me like they didn't have a choice. "I have screenshots," they said, voice breaking. "I took them because I thought I was losing my mind. Because every time she talked about today, it sounded like a plan." My heart slammed against my ribs. They held the phone out toward me, screen dark, waiting. "If you want," they said, and their eyes filled again, "I can show you. I can show you what she said." My hands didn't move. Because I understood, in a sudden, brutal way, that there was one last second where I could pretend I hadn't seen it. And the moment I looked, my life would split cleanly into before and after. The phone hovered between us like a live thing. The witness held it out with both hands, like if they trusted one hand, it might shake too much and drop it into the sink. The screen was still dark. Their thumb rested near the side button, not pressing it yet. "If you want," they said again, voice barely above the running water, "I can show you." My mouth opened, then closed. The part of me that still loved her, still wanted the version of today I'd been rehearsing in my head, kept whispering that I didn't have to look. Not yet. Not right now. Not in this bathroom with my tie crooked and my palms wet and my whole future standing on the other side of a locked door. And the other part of me, the part that had been swallowing discomfort for months, was tired. I stared at the witness's face. Their eyes weren't calculating. They weren't excited. They looked like someone who'd been carrying a secret and had finally reached the point where their body was revolting. Outside the bathroom door, someone laughed. A long, carefree laugh that belonged in a celebration montage. A woman's voice floated by, bright and sing-song, and I recognized it as my aunt calling out to someone about photos. The world was still moving. The wedding was still happening. I heard my name, muffled but clear enough to make my shoulders tighten. "Hey, where'd you go? You good?" One of my groomsmen, probably leaning into the hallway, scanning, smiling like this was normal pre-wedding nerves. I didn't answer, neither did the witness. We just stood there, holding our breath, waiting for the footsteps to move away. When they did, the witness's shoulders sagged with relief, and then they looked at me like they were about to push me off a cliff, because it was the only way to save me from the fire behind us. "Tell me," I said, and my voice surprised me with how steady it was. "Show me." The witness flinched, like they'd been hoping I wouldn't ask. Then they nodded once, hard, as if they'd just signed something too. They clicked the side button, and the screen lit up. For a second, all I saw was their lock screen photo, her and them at some party last summer, both smiling, both with drinks in their hands. Her arm was around the witness's shoulders, her head tilted into them like she belonged there. That image made my stomach twist in a way that had nothing to do with jealousy and everything to do with betrayal. Familiar warmth repurposed into camouflage. The witness unlocked the phone, then hesitated, eyes flicking up to mine. "I need you to understand," they whispered. "I didn't go looking for this. I wasn't trying to collect dirt. I got scared. I felt like I was being pulled into something and I didn't know how deep it went." "Okay," I said. My throat felt tight, but I kept my voice even. "Just show me." They nodded and tapped an app on the home screen that looked like a calculator. A calculator. It opened like a calculator. The witness typed a sequence of numbers without looking at the screen, like muscle memory, and the display blinked and changed. A hidden folder opened up, a plain list. No cute icons, no romantic names, just a handful of threads and saved images. My skin prickled. "This is how she did it," the witness said, and the bitterness in their voice made my chest ache. "It looks like nothing. She'd hand you her phone and you'd never think to open the calculator." I swallowed, forcing my eyes to stay on the screen. The witness tapped a thread. At first it didn't register. My brain saw words, but not meaning. It took a second for the letters to arrange themselves into reality, like my mind needed a buffer before it could accept what it was reading. Then a name appeared at the top. Someone I knew. Not a random number, not an unknown contact. A real person whose hand I'd shaken, whose smile I had returned. Someone who had looked me in the eye today and told me I looked happy. The witness scrolled, slowly, like they didn't want to rush me into the impact. There were messages from her, plenty of them, and they were nothing like the woman I thought I was marrying. No hearts. No, I can't wait to be with you. No guilt. No, this is wrong. It was logistics. Thursday after he leaves for the lender. Use the side entrance. Don't park out front. Keep it off the main card. A message from him. What if he checks? Her reply came immediately. He won't. And if he does, he'll ask like a little boy, and I'll make him feel guilty. My stomach dropped so hard I felt it in my knees. The witness's thumb hovered over the screen, trembling. I'm sorry, they said again, like the word could hold all the damage if they said it enough times. I didn't answer, I couldn't. My eyes were locked on the thread. I scrolled just a little, needing more, hating myself for needing more, like my mind was searching for the one line that would let me say, this isn't real, this is out of context, this is a joke. Instead, I found the line that made my blood turn cold. Once he signs, it's done. After that, he can't undo it without burning himself. I stared at it until the words blurred. My hands were still braced on the sink. I realized I was gripping it so hard my fingers hurt, but the pain was distant, like it belonged to someone else. What does that mean? I asked, and my voice sounded like it came from underwater. The witness swallowed. It means she thinks you won't leave if it gets messy. She thinks you'll stay quiet to avoid embarrassment, to avoid losing money, to avoid looking like the guy who got played. A laugh floated in from outside, and it almost made me sick. Because it was normal. Because it was the sound of my life continuing while my insides were coming apart. The witness scrolled again, and I saw a timestamp. Today. Not sometime last month. Not a year ago when things were shaky. Today. There was another line from her. Signing at 2 o'clock. After that, we're safe. Safe? As if I was the danger. As if my trust was a resource she needed to lock down before it noticed it was being drained. I felt heat rise in my chest, sharp and immediate, but it wasn't just anger, it was humiliation, like my body understood the social reality she'd built around me. I could almost hear it. He overreacted. He's controlling. He always does this. Stress makes him paranoid. She'd given them a script. And if I hadn't walked into this bathroom, the script would have worked. The witness tapped another saved item. A screenshot. It was a note, typed, clean, and structured like a checklist. Dates. Amounts. A timeline that matched the wedding deposits, the joint account contributions, the expected gift money. At the bottom was a line that turned my stomach into stone. After wedding, move funds, then handle him. Keep everyone calm. Don't let him talk to anyone alone. Handle him. Like I was a situation to be managed, not a person. My throat made a sound that wasn't quite a sob and wasn't quite a laugh. The witness flinched like they'd been hit. That's the parts, they whispered. That's when I knew I couldn't keep telling myself it was just messy feelings. That it was. Complicated. It's not complicated. It's calculated. I forced myself to breathe. In, out. In, out. Outside the door, footsteps approached again. Slower this time. Closer. Someone paused in the hallway. I heard the faint tap of a knuckle against the doorframe, like they were deciding whether to knock. Then the knock came, soft. Babe, her voice called through the door. My whole body went rigid. She sounded sweet, concerned, like the woman everyone loved, like the woman who'd sent me a text this morning saying she couldn't wait to see my face when we finally signed. Are you okay in there? She asked. Still gentle, still perfect. We're about to start. The witness's eyes went wide with panic. They looked like they wanted to disappear into the tile. I couldn't move. For a second, I pictured opening the door and seeing her, radiant in her dress, smiling in that way that made people soften automatically. And then I pictured those messages again, the cold tone, the way she talked about me like I was a lever to pull. I watched the witness's thumb hover over the screen, and I realized they were about to back out, about to lock the phone, about to shove it away like none of this had happened. Because that's what fear does. It tries to put the secret back in the box. Don't, I said quietly. The witness froze. Don't delete anything, I added, and I heard the steel in my own voice. They nodded fast, tears spilling over again. Outside, her voice softened even more, layered with concern like honey. Hey, she said, talk to me. Are you having a panic attack? It's okay, breathe. I'm right here. It was such a perfect performance that my chest hurt. I leaned closer to the witness's phone, and the witness tilted it toward me, careful not to drop it. My eyes flicked back to the thread, to the timestamps, to the names. There was no out. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It wasn't a mistake she'd confess and cry about and promise to fix. It was a plan that needed me to cooperate. The witness's voice cracked, barely contained. I'm so sorry. I said yes to things that felt small. I said yes to telling people you were stressed. I said yes to being the person who could calm you down if you started asking questions. She made it sound like you were hurting her, like you were the risk. They shook their head, breath coming fast. And then one day she said, if he tries to talk about the card again, remind him how controlling it is. Like it was a button I could press. Like she already knew which words would make you fold? I stared at the screen, but I was hearing months of conversations replay in my head with new subtitles. My apologies, my hesitation, the way I'd swallowed questions because I didn't want to be that guy. The witness's eyes locked onto mine. I didn't start this, they said, voice raw. I didn't plan it. But I became part of it, and if you sign today, I become part of it forever. I'll be the person who stood next to her while she did this to you. Her voice came again through the door, slightly sharper now, the sweetness strained. Open the door, she said, not loud, not angry, just firm, a polite command dressed up as concern. We're waiting on you. The witness flinched like that tone was familiar, and that was when something in me clicked. Not a dramatic snap, not a rush of adrenaline. It felt quieter than that, like a switch that had been half loose for months finally locking into place. I realized I'd been trying to preserve the dream because I didn't want to be embarrassed. Because I didn't want to admit I'd built a life around a person who could talk about me like a tool. But if I signed, the embarrassment would be the least of it. If I signed, I would be signing my name under her version of reality. I would be agreeing to the story where my discomfort is control, my questions are accusations, and my trust is something she can convert into leverage. I looked at the witness, and I could tell they were bracing for me to explode, to shout, to throw something, to run out and punch the guy whose name was at the top of that thread. Instead, I exhaled. Okay, I said. The witness blinked. Okay? I nodded once. I reached up, straightened my tie with hands that didn't feel like mine, and smoothed the front of my suit jacket like I was preparing for a meeting. I'm not signing anything, I said, and my voice was calm enough that it scared me. Not today. Not ever. The witness's face crumpled in a way that looked like relief and terror colliding. Outside the door, she tried again, a little laugh forced into her voice. What is going on? Come on, don't do this right now. Don't do this right now. Not, are you okay? Not, talk to me? Don't do this right now. The witness grabbed my sleeve, fingers clutching the fabric like they were drowning. You have to be careful, they whispered. She's going to flip it. She's going to make it about you. She's going to make you the villain. I met their eyes. I know, I said, and it was the truth in the simplest form. That's why I can't do this quietly. Their mouth parted like they hadn't expected that answer. I reached for the faucet and turned the water off. The sudden silence in the bathroom felt like a vacuum. Then I stepped toward the door. The witness backed up automatically, like they thought I might open it and get swallowed by the noise. My hand closed around the knob. On the other side, I could hear her breathing, close to the door now, like she had moved up to listen. I paused, not because I was hesitating, but because I wanted to feel the decision settle into my bones. This was the line. This was the moment where everything split. The witness's voice came out small behind me. You're really going to stop it? It wasn't a question. It was disbelief. I didn't turn around. Yes, I said. And I felt the dread roll through the room the second the witness understood what that meant, not just for me, but for all of them. I opened the door, and the noise hit me like heat. Music, voices, the clink of glasses, the bright, busy hum of people who think they're about to watch something beautiful. She was right there, just outside the bathroom, like she'd been listening with her ear pressed to the wood. Her face was arranged into concern the way you arrange flowers. Perfect, soft, worried. Hey, she said immediately, reaching for my arm. Are you okay? You disappeared, and everyone's asking. I stepped sideways instead of letting her take me. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't yank away. I just moved like I was avoiding a puddle. Her hand hung in the air for half a second. Then she laughed lightly, the way you laugh when you want other people to think everything is normal. Babe, she whispered, low enough that it sounded intimate. What is happening? Behind her, the hallway opened into the main room of the venue. It wasn't a church, more like a small event space with big windows, white chairs set up in neat rows, an arch of flowers in the front. The officiant stood near a little table with a folder on it. Paperwork. Pens. The entire day condensed into a few sheets of paper and 2 signatures. I could see my mom in the front row, dabbing at her eyes even though nothing had started yet. My sister was leaning toward her, smiling. My groomsmen were clustered near the side, watching me with that, "You good?" look guys give each other when they don't know how to ask. Someone clapped my shoulder as I stepped out. "Dude," one of my friends said, grinning, "You okay? Thought you fainted in there." I nodded once. "I'm fine." My voice sounded normal. That's what scared me. I felt like I was watching myself from above, calm and precise, like my body had decided panic would be useless. My girlfriend, my fiancée, technically, kept pace with me, half a step behind, like she was trying to reattach herself to my side without making it obvious. "You're scaring me," she said, still soft, still sweet. "Did something happen?" I didn't answer her. Not yet. Because I understood exactly what she'd do with words if I gave her space. She'd fold them, twist them, make them fit her story. The witness stepped out behind me, face pale, eyes wet, hands shaking. They hovered near the bathroom door like they might bolt. My girlfriend's eyes flicked to them for the briefest moment. Something sharpened in her expression, then smoothed out again so fast I would have missed it if I wasn't watching for it. She smiled at the witness. "Are you okay?" she asked, like she was being kind. The witness didn't smile back. I walked toward the signing table, and I felt people tracking me. Not in a hostile way, in a curious way. The ceremony wasn't supposed to start with me walking in like I'd just stepped out of a meeting. It was supposed to be romantic, emotional, teary. Instead, I was moving like a man going to cancel a contract. The officiant saw me and brightened. "Ah, there he is," she said warmly, "just in time. We can do the signing first, then." "No," I said. It wasn't loud, it wasn't angry. It cut through the room anyway because it didn't belong in the script. The officiant blinked. "I'm sorry?" "I'm not signing," I said, and I could hear how my words drained the warmth out of the air. "Not today." For a second, nobody moved. It was like the room didn't know which reaction to pick. Laugh? Ask if I was joking? Look at her? Then my girlfriend stepped forward, smile already on, eyes wide with concern. "Okay," she said, and she laughed lightly like I'd made a nervous joke. He's overwhelmed. He's been anxious all morning. Can we just—" I didn't look at her. I looked at the officiant. "I need a pause," I said. "I need everyone to sit down for a minute." A ripple went through the chairs. People shifted. Someone coughed. A few guests laughed, uncertainly, like they were waiting for the gotcha. My mom stood up halfway. "Honey?" she called, confused. "What's going on?" My girlfriend's hand found my elbow again, gentle but firm. "Can you come here?" she whispered, tugging slightly, trying to pull me toward the side, toward privacy, toward the place she could work me without witnesses. I stepped away again, same calm sidestep. Her smile tightened. Her voice stayed sweet, but the edge underneath it sharpened. "Please," she said, still low, "don't do this. Don't do this. Not, are you okay? Not, talk to me. Don't do this." I turned my head toward her just enough to meet her eyes. "I'm not signing," I repeated, evenly. Her eyes flashed, then softened instantly when she noticed people watching. "Everyone," she said, raising her voice into a gentle, embarrassed laugh. "He's just having a moment. He gets in his head, you know how he is?" There it was, the narrative in real time. The officiant looked uncomfortable, hands hovering over the folder like she didn't know if she should close it or pretend nothing was happening. One of the venue staff stepped forward, a young woman with a headset, smiling nervously. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "Do you need a private room?" My girlfriend jumped on it immediately. "Yes," she said. "Too fast? We just need a second. He's overwhelmed." She reached for me again, and this time her fingers dug into my sleeve a little harder, still hidden behind her smile. "Come on," she whispered through her teeth. "Stop trying to control everything." Control. She said it like an instinct, like it was her emergency lever. My chest tightened, but my voice didn't change. "I'm not controlling anything," I said. "I'm withdrawing consent." That word, consent, hit different in a room full of people. It made it sound like what it was, a decision, a boundary, not a tantrum. My groomsmen stopped smiling. My sister's mouth parted. My mom sat down slowly like her knees had lost strength. My girlfriend's face flickered. The smile held, but barely. She turned to the room again, still trying to keep it light. "He's been really stressed," she said. "He's been acting intense. I think he's just scared and he's taking it out on me." I felt my skin go cold because I recognized it. The same framing, the same bricks. Stress. Intense. Control. And then the witness moved. They stepped forward from the hallway like someone walking onto a stage they never wanted to be on. Their hands were trembling so hard they had to press them together in front of their stomach. My girlfriend's head snapped toward them so fast the smile almost slipped off. "What are you doing?" she whispered, and for the first time her voice wasn't sweet. The witness swallowed. "I can't," they said, voice breaking. "I can't keep lying." The room shifted. People leaned forward. Someone whispered, "What?" My girlfriend's smile froze. Then she laughed. Too loud, too bright. "Okay," she said, still smiling at everyone. "This is ridiculous. They're emotional. We've all been emotional. It's been a lot." She turned to the witness and her voice dropped, sharp and low. "Stop!" The witness didn't stop. Their eyes flicked to me, then back to the room. "He's not having a panic attack," they said, and their voice shook. "He's not overreacting. He's stopping it because—" My girlfriend cut in instantly, raising her voice over them. "Because he's scared," she insisted. "Because he's been controlling lately, and he thinks—" "I'm her witness," the witness said, louder now, fighting to be heard. "And I need to say this before he signs anything." The officiant's face went pale. She looked from me to my girlfriend to the witness, and then back again, like she was suddenly aware of legal implications. My girlfriend's eyes widened, and for a fraction of a second I saw pure panic there. Then she pivoted. She turned toward me, softening her face again. "Baby," she said, voice sweet, pleading. "Please, let's talk privately. You're humiliating me." Humiliating her. Not heartbroken, not confused. Humiliated. My friend beside me muttered, "What the hell?" My girlfriend kept going, performing for the crowd. "This is not the time," she said, voice trembling on purpose. "We can talk about whatever this is later. We have people here, we have family. We've already paid for everything." The last part came out sharper than she intended. Paid. Everything. It was a practical word, a money word, not a love word. The room caught it. I saw it in the way my mom's expression shifted, confusion mixing with something wary. My girlfriend realized it too, because her smile faltered again. She tried to recover. "I just mean," she started, laughing lightly. "I just mean it's a lot of pressure, okay? We've planned this for months." But the witness kept speaking, voice raw now. "She's been seeing someone else," they said, "and she's been planning for today." A collective inhale moved through the room like a wave. My girlfriend's face snapped into outrage, perfectly timed. "That is a lie," she said, loud and clear, turning to the guests like she was addressing a jury. "That is insane. He's been paranoid, and now he's dragging people into it." Paranoid. There it was again, the script, the ready-made explanation. The witnesses' hands shook, but they didn't back down. They pulled their phone out with trembling fingers. "I have screenshots," they said. "Messages, a plan. And," they looked at me, voice breaking, "and I'm sorry because I helped cover it." Someone in the second row whispered, "Oh my God." My girlfriend lunged half a step toward the witness, then stopped herself when she realized how it would look. She forced a laugh. "You're going to trust screenshots?" she said, voice rising into disbelief. "You're going to ruin my wedding over text messages? This is ridiculous." My sister stood up fully now, eyes locked on my girlfriend. My girlfriend's smile cracked. "Can you just come here?" she hissed at me, low enough that only the closest people could hear. "Stop trying to control the narrative and talk to me like an adult." And that was it. Not because it was mean, not because it was loud, because it was the same move, the same lever, control, narrative, script. And because when she said narrative, she said it like a strategy, not like a feeling. The witness's voice shook, but they pushed through it. She said, they swallowed hard, she said once he signs, it's done, that he won't undo it without burning himself. Silence hit the room so hard it felt physical. Even the music seemed suddenly too loud, like someone had left a radio playing at a funeral. The venue staff member reached toward the speaker system, hesitated, then turned it down. My girlfriend's eyes went wide. For the first time, she looked like she didn't have a line ready. Then she recovered, snapping into anger. "Are you kidding me?" she said, voice sharp now, and the sweetness was gone. "You're doing this now, after everything we've paid, after all the deposits?" Do you have any idea how much money is on the line? The words hung there. Deposits. Money. On the line. Not love. Not us. Not, I can't believe you think I would do this to you. Just money. And the room heard it. I watched people's faces change. Not all at once, but in a chain reaction. My mom's expression hardened. My uncle stopped fidgeting. One of her friends looked down at their lap like they didn't want to be seen. My girlfriend realized what she'd revealed. Her mouth opened, then closed. She tried to pivot back to tears, back to the performance, but it was too late. The crack was visible now, and once people see a crack, they start looking for the rest. The officiant slowly closed the folder, hands trembling. I stood there, still calm, and I felt something strange settle over me. Not triumph, not revenge. Clarity. Because in that one practical, self-interested line, she had told the whole room who she really was. And the silence that followed wasn't just shock. It was the sound of everyone mentally rewinding the last few months, replaying every moment they'd praised her, every joke they'd made about me being intense, every time they'd believed her version of reality without questioning it. I looked at her, and for the first time, she looked small. Not because she was a victim, because the script wasn't working anymore. I wish I could tell you the moment I said I'm not signing was the end. Like the room went quiet, everyone understood. She admitted it, and I walked out into the sunlight with my dignity tucked neatly under my arm. That's not how it went. What actually happened is that the whole day kept trying to continue without us, like a machine that doesn't know it's broken yet. People didn't move at first. They just stared. The officiant had closed the folder, but she didn't know what to do with her hands. The venue coordinator was frozen between customer service smile and, oh my God. My mom stood up and walked straight to me without asking permission from the room. What's happening? She asked, and her voice wasn't soft. It was the voice she used when I was a kid, and she knew I was lying about something. Are you safe? That question hit me harder than anything else. Safe, like she could feel something in the air that wasn't just drama. I nodded. Yeah, I said, I'm safe. I'm not doing this. My girlfriend's face snapped toward my mom, already moving into outrage. Are you serious? She said, and her voice shook on purpose. He's having some kind of breakdown, and everyone's just letting him. I'm not having a breakdown, I said, and I didn't raise my voice. I'm making a decision. She laughed, sharp and bitter. A decision. Okay. A decision based on what? On someone's screenshots? On some invented story because you can't handle being in control of everything for one day? Control. Again. I looked at my mom, then at my sister, then at the people I'd invited to witness my life. I felt the humiliation she'd been banking on, the social gravity of it. The part of my brain that wanted to disappear rather than be the guy who cancels a wedding. And then I remembered the message on that phone. He won't undo it without burning himself. That was the plan. Shame as a handcuff. I turned back to the officiant. I'm sorry, I said, but I'm done. I'm not signing. The officiant cleared her throat, eyes wide. Understood, she said carefully. We will not proceed. The venue coordinator stepped in quickly after that. Not because she wanted to, but because someone has to take control when a room full of people loses its script. Okay, she said, too bright. If we can all just give them space. We're going to pause. Please remain seated, or if you need to step outside, that's fine. People started moving in slow, confused waves. Chairs scraped. Someone whispered, "Is this real?" Someone else murmured, "I knew something was off," which was always my favorite genre of lie. My groomsman, Nate, came to my side and didn't ask questions. He just stood there like a wall. "You want to leave?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I said. My girlfriend stepped in front of me, blocking the aisle like she could physically redirect the day back onto the tracks. "Don't walk away from me," she hissed, and the sweetness was gone now. "Not like this." I held her gaze. "Move." Her eyes widened, offended. "Excuse me?" "Move," I repeated. "Calm, clear, we're done." And for a second, I saw it in her face. She was calculating. She was running the options. Cry? Yell? Grab my arm? Make a scene bigger than mine so mine looks unreasonable? She chose tears because it plays best to an audience. "I can't believe you're doing this," she said, louder now, letting her voice crack. "After everything, after all the money, after—" She cut herself off, realizing too late she'd said the quiet part twice. My mom didn't flinch. She just looked at her with that steady, disappointed stare. "That's what you're worried about?" my mom asked. "The money?" My girlfriend blinked rapidly, trying to pivot. I'm worried about him, she said quickly. He's spiraling and... My sister stepped up next to my mom, jaw tight. Stop, my sister said. Just stop. We're not doing this. That was the moment I knew I wasn't alone in the room anymore. Nate guided me around her shoulder, gentle but firm, and we walked out. Not sprinting, not fleeing. Walking, like I was leaving a job I'd outgrown. Outside, the air felt colder, cleaner. My lungs worked again. The witness came out a minute later, hovering at a distance like they didn't deserve to be near me. Their face was blotchy and pale, and they looked like they might throw up. I'm sorry, they said again. I believed them and also didn't. That's the thing about betrayal. Apologies don't undo participation. But I also knew one thing. They had made the hardest choice at the worst moment, and I wouldn't be standing outside if they hadn't. I need the screenshots, I said. I need them sent to me, and I need you to keep everything. Don't delete anything. They nodded quickly, wiping their face. Okay, yes, I will. Then they hesitated. She's going to ruin me for this, they whispered. I didn't sugarcoat it. Yeah, I said. She probably will try. The first practical consequence hit within an hour. The venue kept the deposit. That's how it works. We'd signed contracts. The photographer still billed part of the fee. The florist wanted cancellation charges. People always want their money, even when your life is on fire. The joint account, the one we'd opened for wedding expenses, was still sitting there with a few $1,000s in it. Enough to matter. Enough to be worth fighting over. I called the bank from the parking lot with Nate standing next to me, and I asked what I could do immediately. The answer was frustrating and predictable. I could freeze certain activity, but anything already authorized might still clear. Anything with both signatures required both signatures. So I did the only thing I could do quickly. I moved my portion out of the joint account into my personal account and documented it. I took screenshots of the balance before and after. I sent myself an email with a timestamp and notes like I was preparing for court, because in a way, I was. Then I called my lender. I told them to pause everything. I told them not to move forward on any paperwork until I spoke to an attorney. That part wasn't dramatic. It was boring. It was phone menus and hold music and me staring at the dashboard of Nate's car while my hands shook for the first time all day. That night, I didn't go home. Home was technically ours. My clothes were there, my toothbrush, our furniture, our life. But I also knew something my body understood more clearly than my brain. The second I walked into that house, she'd try to trap me in a conversation. She'd try to make it emotional, messy, private. That's where she was strongest. So I went to Nate's place with a garment bag and my wallet and my phone charger. That was it. My phone started blowing up before I even got there. At first, it was texts like she was still performing for the version of me who wanted to believe. Please talk to me. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. This is not who you are. I don't know what they told you, but it's not true. Then the tone shifted. You're really going to throw away 4 years over your paranoia? You need help. My family is asking what's wrong with you. You're making yourself look insane. And then, the one that made my stomach twist because it was so consistent with everything I'd just seen. If you come to your senses, we can fix this, but you need to stop trying to control the narrative. Control, narrative, again. I didn't respond to the emotion bait. I didn't defend myself. I didn't argue about what I'd seen, because arguing implies there's a debate. There wasn't. I sent one text. I'm not discussing this by phone or in person. Do not come to Nate's. Do not contact my family. Any communication about accounts, deposits, or property must be in writing. Then I turned my phone on Do Not Disturb. The next morning, I went back to the house with Nate and my sister in broad daylight with witnesses. Not because I wanted an audience, but because I didn't trust privacy anymore. She was there. Of course she was. She stood in the kitchen like she'd been waiting all night. Her eyes were puffy. Her face was arranged into heartbreak again. Finally, she whispered, like my showing up proved something, we can talk. No, I said. I'm here to get my things. Her expression shifted. You're really doing this, she said, and now the tears came, quick and practiced. After everything we built? I didn't bite. I walked past her and went to the bedroom. I grabbed clothes, laptop, documents, anything that mattered, legally or financially. I took photos of everything that was jointly owned. I made a list. She followed me, trying to pull me into the emotional center. You don't even know what you saw, she said. Screenshots can be faked. Then show me your phone, my sister said from the doorway, flat and unamused. My girlfriend's eyes flashed. Absolutely not. That's controlling. My sister laughed, one short sound. There it is. I kept packing. At one point, she blocked the door to the closet and put her hand on my arm. Not hard. Not violent. Just enough to force contact. "Look at me," she said. "Just look at me." I met her eyes, and I felt something sad and distant. Like I was looking at a person I used to know. "I did," I said. "I finally did." She opened her mouth, maybe to cry, maybe to rage, maybe to bargain. I stepped around her. Within a week, the clean logistics happened quickly, and the messy ones started dragging. I closed the joint account after documenting everything and consulting a lawyer about the cleanest way to do it. I canceled any shared subscriptions. I changed passwords on everything that was mine. I put a hold on my credit and checked my reports because paranoia isn't paranoia when you've been used as a resource. The ring went back, not with a dramatic toss. I put it in a small box and dropped it off with a mutual friend as a neutral handoff because I wasn't going to be in a room alone with her again. The house situation became a slow, ugly negotiation. Contracts, deadlines, phone calls. My attorney told me what I already knew. Some losses were unavoidable. Deposits would be gone. Some money would be unrecoverable. The goal wasn't to win. It was to minimize damage and exit cleanly. And the witness, the person who had saved me in that bathroom, paid for it in a way I didn't expect. Her friends turned on them. Not all of them, but enough. They got cut out of group chats. They got uninvited from things. They got labeled as jealous and dramatic, because that's the easiest way to punish someone who tells the truth. You make them the problem. They messaged me once, late at night. "I can't sleep," they wrote. "I keep thinking I ruined her life." I stared at that text for a long time before replying. "You didn't ruin her life," I wrote back. "You stopped her from ruining mine." That didn't fix it for them. Nothing fixes it. Truth doesn't come without blood loss. Over the next month, the emotional fallout came in waves I didn't control. Some days I felt relieved. Some days I felt sick. Some days I missed her like my body hadn't gotten the memo that she wasn't real. But there were a few things I learned the hard way, and I'm writing them here because I wish someone had shaken me months ago and said them plainly. First, if someone frames your reasonable questions as a character flaw, pay attention. Transparency isn't control. It's the minimum requirement for trust. Second, watch how they prepare other people to see you. If your partner is quietly teaching your friends that you're intense, paranoid, or controlling, they're not protecting the relationship. They're building a shield for themselves. Third, secrecy isn't the same as privacy. Privacy is, "This is ours." Secrecy is, "You don't get to know because it would limit my options." Fourth, the moment you realize you're managing your tone more than your partner is managing their behavior, you're already in the trap. If you're always apologizing just to keep peace, peace is not what you have. Fifth, integrity isn't a feeling. It's a decision you make when you're about to lose something you wanted. Choosing it doesn't feel heroic. It feels like grief with a spine. Now, it's been long enough that the story has settled into facts. We didn't get married. The deposits are gone. Some relationships in our circle didn't survive because people don't like being reminded they participated in a lie, even passively. She's still telling her version, from what I hear. In her version, I panicked. I got cold feet. I was controlling. I let someone poison me against her. In my version, I found out the person I loved was treating me like a contract she needed to lock down. Here's the part one still wrestle with, and it's why I'm posting. I could have waited. I could have played along, signed, and confronted her privately later. I could have avoided humiliating her in front of everyone and saved face for the families and maybe even recovered some money. But if I'd done that, I would have been cooperating with the exact plan she counted on. Shame me into silence, trap me in the optics, make it too expensive, socially and financially, to leave. So I'm asking you, AITA, for stopping the signing in public, in that moment, instead of pretending everything was fine and dealing with it later, behind closed doors. And if you want more stories like this, realistic updates, messy consequences, and endings that don't pretend everything ties up neatly, subscribe, because I'm still learning what integrity costs, and I'm still choosing to pay it. Some nights I think about that bathroom, not the screenshots, not the betrayal, not the room going silent. I think about the second before I opened the door, when I could have stayed in there, let the world keep laughing outside, and kept my life intact for a few more hours. And then I remember how it felt when the decision clicked into place. Quiet, terrifying, clean. Like the sound of a lock turning the right way for the first time.